What I want him to do is understand that the door itself is information about what to do. In this clip, you're going to notice that I approach the door, take treats, drop them on the ground, and then walk away. I don't say anything to my dog Deefer. Deefer is 12, and he learned this lesson when he was a younger dog, and we haven't been doing it lately, in part because he's very arthritic and doesn't really approach the door on his own very often. The next thing I'm going to do is drop treats and then open and shut the door. Once again, notice that I don't talk to Deefer at all. I just walk up, take the treats, drop them on the floor, open and close. Then I walk away and I repeat. With a young dog, I would keep doing this for a much longer time. The next step is to start going through the door and come back in. I won't start this until the dog is really sure about not going through the door when I open and close it. Notice that I'm not talking to Deefer here. I just go out, come in, and close the door again. Deefer is much more interested in what's on the floor than what I'm doing, and this is exactly what I want. When your dog completely disregards the activity of you coming and going, you're ready to start calling him outside. If you leave somewhere where your dog could bolt to the road, please do this part on leash until you're very certain he won't leave. This is very important. Notice that at this point, Deef is kind of reluctant to come outside. Keep in mind, Deef is very, very elderly, and I have to coax him back in because there's a step, not because he wants to stay outside. Notice that some of the time I'm dropping treats on my way back in with him to make it rewarding for him to come inside. I had to point the treats out to him there because he got sidetracked when one of the horses was walking by and he was going to go say hello. I really like to mix things up and sometimes send the dog out without me so that he's not always thinking that I have to be going out with him for him to go outside.
Okay, come on back in.
In this case, you can see he's really struggling to make that step, and I actually had to go outside and give him a little bit of help to get him back in the house.
Attaboy.
He just needed some stabilizing. It's never wrong to go back a step and just open and close the door and drop treats without going through or without sending your dog in or out, just as a review. You really want to make sure that your dog is not anticipating that every time the door opens, he's going to get a chance to go outside. The next step is to teach your dog to notice that you're at the door and that he should just sit because you're at the door. I want you to really notice that we're building this behavior without the use of a verbal cue. And the reason we don't use a verbal cue is that guests aren't going to necessarily remember to tell your dog to sit. As soon as he sits, I drop the treat, open and close the door. So now we're building up to the kind of behavior that we want to see when my dog sees someone other than me at the door. So if I had someone come to visit and they needed to go out to their car for some reason or another, I want my dogs to notice and to sit right away without any verbal prompt. You'll notice that I'm standing quietly and still. I do have food in my hand, which is a big clue to my dog that I want him to do something. You're also going to notice that Deefer in particular sits very slowly, and that's because he's 12 and has arthritis. We did this a lot when he was a younger dog. He doesn't actually sit very frequently anymore. So in a way, it's a little bit unfair to ask him to do this. Notice that now he's looking at me and recognizes that I don't have food in my hand, and so we're going to have to wait a long time. But still, I'm not going to say anything to him. I'm just going to wait until he notices, and then I'm going to drop the treats when he sits. That last sit sure took a long time. It took a long time in part because Deefer's unable to sit easily. So I stopped my training session at this point because his health and well-being is much more important than a demonstration of a training technique. This is a review of behaviors that we haven't worked on in perhaps 5 or 6 years. Due to his advanced age and arthritis, I took his needs into account ahead of the needs for a demo. With a young, healthy dog, I would have worked on each stage until we had mastered it. And then from this point, I would work on having other people approach the door and wait for the sit and come in and out from each direction until my dog absolutely would not go through unless he was invited.